What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Marksville College Football Show. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the top true freshmen in college football for this past season. These guys came in and made immediate impacts as first-year players out of high school, and that is a huge accomplishment, so we really want to put a spotlight on them today. So we're going to count down from 10 to 1, the top true freshmen in college football. This was hard to do to really limit this to 10 players. There was a ton of guys deserving, but here we go. So at number 10, I have Denzel Burke, the cornerback from Ohio State. He started all 13 games at Ohio State this year, and that's incredible because this isn't any program. This is the Ohio State. They have, the cream of the crop, the top talent, and he beat out guys along the way to become one of those top corners at Ohio State. He led the defense in snaps with 731, so that's remarkable. And I did see a stat that in 12 regular season games this year, he did not give up 100 receiving yards in a single game, nor did he give up a passing touchdown the entire year. So he had an amazing year, a deserving player to be on this list, and I'm really looking forward to what he could do in the future moving forward. At number 9, I have Joe Alt, the left tackle for Notre Dame. He didn't start the season as a starter. He took over the starting job in week 6, and he never looked back. I'm going to use a PFF stat. I know some people are pro PFF, others aren't, but I do think it is a good indicator of performance. They have Joe Alt from week 6 on grading out as a top 15 tackle in Power 5. So that's a huge accomplishment from coming off the bench as a depth piece to becoming a starter to becoming an elite starter, which he did clearly. And I do think he'll be an anchor for their line for multiple years here. And left tackles fly off the board in the draft. I know I'm looking ahead here, but if he plays like this, he'll probably be a day one pick in the NFL draft in a couple years from now. At number 8, this might be my favorite player on the list. This is Josiah Stewart, the edge rusher from Coastal Carolina. He wasn't a highly recruited player. I believe here he was the number 754 player on 24/7 Sports Composite list coming out of the recruiting class last year. He has 15.5 tackles for loss, 12.5 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, and his 12.5 sacks are good enough to be tied for 5th in the country in sacks. This isn't just freshmen. This is everyone. So he was a menace this year for Coastal Carolina, and his potential is really untapped. So this is a guy definitely to monitor moving forward. At number 7, I have Dallas Turner, the edge rusher from Alabama. I think we all know who this guy is from his performance in the national championship. I know all eyes are on Will Anderson, a phenomenal player on Alabama. But if you were watching that game, it was impossible not to notice Dallas Turner. He was all over the place making big plays. So he had 30 tackles on the season, 8.5 sacks. But 3 of those sacks came in the college football playoff, whether I think he had 1 against Cincinnati, and I think he had 2 in the national championship against Georgia. He was an absolute beast and, really a special player. I mean, this guy, I mentioned Joe Alt being a first rounder. I really think that Dallas Turner will be a first-round pick when his time comes. You got to remember, this is a true freshman making an enormous impact on the biggest stage. This isn't even a conference championship we're talking about. This is a national championship, and Dallas Turner had an amazing game. I know they didn't win the game, but if they did, he would have been a large reason why. At number 6, we have Colin Oliver, the defensive end from Oklahoma State. He had 15.5 tackles for loss, 11.5 sacks, which was good to be tied for 8th in the country in sacks. It wasn't quite Josiah Stewart's tied for 5th, but it was tied for 8th. And, they had a very good defense on Oklahoma State. And, this is big boy football. This is Power 5 football. So those are some gaudy numbers out of a true freshman. Oliver wasn't really a highly touted recruit coming out of high school. The 24/7 composite rankings had him at number 400. So he absolutely outplayed where he was coming in as a recruit. At number 5, I have the Wisconsin running back, Braylon Allen. I might make a full video on Braylon Allen. This is how impressive this guy was. But for now, let's just give you the high-level summary. He rushed for 1,268 yards. He had 12 rushing touchdowns. I believe he had 8 games over 100 yards, but he had a streak of 7 games in a row over 100 yards rushing. So this kid really tore it up. He took over the reins, I'm not going to say exactly midseason, but early midseason. He is just a beast. I believe the kid was recruited as a linebacker. He could play safety, and then he made the switch to running back. So he is a special player, and he was extremely young this year. He was only 17 years old for the entire season. I believe he just turned 18, in this past week. So clearly, he's just scratching the surface. This kid might be Jonathan Taylor 2.0, just that workhorse back that really, really punishes defenses. Again, he was relatively a big-time recruit. He was the 218th recruit last year, but he played like a top 5 recruit. That's how good this kid was. So let's just see if he could keep this thing rolling into 2022. At number 4, we have Xavier Worthy, the wide receiver from Texas. I know a lot of things didn't go Texas's way this year, but Xavier Worthy was one of those things that did go well, for Texas. He was that bright spot for them this season. He was the number 62 recruit coming out of high school, and he really balled out this year. I mean, he had 981 yards, 12 touchdown receptions. He was the Big 12 newcomer of the year, and he was also first team all Big 12. So as a true freshman, to be an all-conference team, all-conference first-team player is, unbelievable. That there really is no going up from there, right? But I do think he'll continue to grow and really put up bigger seasons as these years go on. He looks like a true number 1 wideout. At number 3, I have Caleb Williams, the quarterback who was at Oklahoma this year. I think we all know who Caleb Williams was. Didn't come into the year as a starter, was behind Heisman favorite, Spencer Rattler, and then Spencer Rattler struggled a little bit. Oklahoma was struggling, and Caleb Williams then took over the reins of this offense, and he was magnificent. I know that they didn't win the conference championship, but in the 7 games he started, he went 5-2. He had 1,912 yards passing, 21 touchdowns to only 4 interceptions. He had, I believe, 442 yards rushing, which is awesome out of a quarterback, and an additional 6 rushing touchdowns. So he was really a dual threat. He didn't look like a true freshman. He wasn't caught in the headlights. He came out and he performed. I think his first extensive playing time was the Red River Showdown against Texas. They were down big. They plug him in, and he leads them to an enormous comeback, and that kind of ushered in, the Caleb Williams era. But as we all know, Caleb Williams is now in the transfer portal. Lincoln Riley left USC. It looks like he will probably head to USC. Nothing official yet. Mario Williams, the wide receiver, who was also a true freshman at Oklahoma, looks like he's going to USC. So it looks like they could be a package deal. But, in his 1 year at Oklahoma, he did big things. I think he lived up to the hype as the number 7 overall recruit last year. Definitely disappointing for Oklahoma that they're losing a kid like him, but I think he lived up to the personal expectations. So I do think Caleb Williams will be a big-time NFL player in the near future. Obviously, he still has to do 2 more years in college, but this kid is special. My number 2 overall true freshman in college football this year was Travion Henderson, the running back from Ohio State. I mean, this kid, he did it all. He had 1,248 yards rushing, 15 rushing touchdowns. Then he also was a great receiver this year and had 4 receiving touchdowns. So he was really a stellar player in every facet of the game. And again, he's doing this at a huge program. They had a back in Master Teague that did well last year, but not this past season, the year prior when they were in the college football playoff. And really to just come in and take over that backfield was impressive. I mean, he was a big-time recruit, number 23 recruit in the 24/7 composite. And boy, did he live up to the hype. I can only imagine what he's going to do. He's looking like, he could be the next great Ohio State running back in that long line of really special players as Zeke Elliott, J.K. Dobbins, and now Travion Henderson in the recent history. But I'm just looking forward to seeing what he could do in the future. And that brings us to the number 1 true freshman in college football this season, and I think we all know who that is. That is Georgia tight end Brock Bowers. This kid was the top option on the national championship winning team as a true freshman. Not many players in the history of college football can say that. He had 882 yards receiving, 13 receiving touchdowns. He also had a rushing touchdown. He was the SEC Freshman of the Year. He was first team All SEC. And of course, he was a national champion. He had the big touchdown that really put Georgia in the driver's seat in the fourth quarter of that national championship. And he was just Stetson Bennett's guy. He was that safety blanket. He really could take the top off the defense, which is, impressive coming from the tight end position. And this kid is the next big thing at tight end in the NFL. We have the Travis Kelce's, and, you have George Kittle. You've seen Gronk's history. And I think that kid is going to be in that stratosphere in the future when he develops into an NFL player. I mean, I think you could plug and play him in the NFL right now. Imagine what he's going to be like after 2 more seasons at Georgia and just really, really prepping for the pros. This kid is, I think when it's said and done, he's going to achieve it all. And the sky is the limit for Brock Bowers. He is an extremely special player. I mean, he was a big-time recruit. He was the 105th recruit coming out of high school. But I think, if college programs could see and recruiters could see what he developed into, I I think it's safe to say he'd be a lot higher than the 105th overall recruit. So Brock Bowers, congratulations on an amazing season, a really special player. All those accolades were well-deserved. And let's see where you could take this into the future in 2022 and 2023. So I think he could go down as one of the all-time greats in college football at the tight end position. All right, so that's all that I have for today. Let me know who you think the top true freshmen in college football were this past season. Make sure to comment, like, and subscribe. I really appreciate it, and have an amazing day.